about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. So, in your family, are you the medic? Are you the one everybody goes to when there's a medical issue? You're not trained? I mean, maybe you do have some training. Maybe your mommy, maybe your daddy. Maybe you were in the military, but are you the medic in the family? And do you like being the medic? Do you feel overwhelmed? Every now and then, I get a request for some advice from somebody or a confirmation or a affirmation that they did the right thing when they provided medical care to a family member. This is why I told you we need to, with schools, change things around in terms of the core classes being done in the morning, and then the afternoons is all about the trades, learning all the different fields out there, learning first aid, medical care, fishing, hunting, survival skills, self-defense. Because the truth of the matter is the average household guardian or parent is going to be the first one to administer medical care. And that could be you. But we don't train people. We gave you guys, as public health officials, a little bit when it came to CPR. But did we require that everybody get CPR trained? Now, maybe I don't like the idea of requiring or mandating, but why isn't every child, every teenager, CPR trained and certified? And basic life support certified? And then renewed? And go through that. Why isn't that done? Well, because schools these days pass you without knowing the material. No. Trust me. These CPR classes will not pass you if you can't do something right. No, you have to do a written test, and you have to do an oral or you have to act out what they are requesting. That's just something you have to do, and otherwise you don't pass. But more times than not, you're going to be managing a heart attack. You're going to be the first person to face somebody with a stroke. You could be the first person dealing with a choking victim, with a respiratory difficulty, with a respiratory depression. We gave you guys a little bit of instruction as it came to Narcan. And if somebody overdoses, some rest stops might have Narcan in the bathroom that you could grab and administer. Although I wonder how many people are vandalizing and using it. And the idea that somebody's stealing it because they need it, that's nice, but I don't know if people stealing it are really needing it. And then they could be taking it away from somebody who needs it. So we don't teach people. I always get asked about these people that play doctors on TV. Does George Clooney know medicine? I mean, you have to memorize lines. And you might pick up some of the, all right, well, I guess we have to push epi. I guess we need to cardiovert. I mean, you might pick up on some of that, but no. In fact, it's funny. Woody Harrelson was injured in a motorcycle accident, and he called his former co-actor, his former colleague, Ted Danson. Remember they were together in Cheers? For help. And he asked Ted Danson, he goes, you played a doctor, right? And I guess he was on his motorcycle. He was trying to pass a Tesla, but a Tesla was slowing down to make a left. And I guess he got into a car accident while he was on his motorcycle accident, hurt his wrist. Thank God he's okay. But I guess Ted Danson took care of his wrist. Why? Because he played one on TV. And so, I am not naive. I understand that it's very difficult to go in and see a doctor. It's very difficult and expensive to go to the ER. And please, for the love of God, if you're suspecting a heart attack, any emergency, please call 911. But oftentimes while you're on the phone with 911, the operator is walking you through giving medical care. Even if you've had training, still follow what the 911 operator is telling you, because they have the most up-to-date, and they also, it's a little different when you are being walked through. You might say, I need to start a tourniquet, and I need to do this, and I need to do this. Okay, can you first assess the breathing? Can you first remove any clothing, restrictive clothing? Can you there's a process that we are able to calmly help you do in the medical field. But I think, if you are feeling inadequate and inept, and the family always goes to you for medical issues, tell them you need to see a medical provider. I'm not your doctor. And you can tell them, hey, I cannot have that on my conscience if you have something bad and I'm missing it. But on the flip side, I get these telemedicine patients who say, yeah, my mom gave me this, my dad gave me this, my neighbor said to do this. And I'm like, why did you take their advice? Why? Because the family will nominate or deputize somebody to be the doctor in the family or the doctor of that neighborhood. I mean, let's say there's a radiologist on your block. They might be able to help deliver a baby. But you're gonna, if you're going into labor, you're gonna call 911. You're gonna get to a hospital. So, what I think we need to do, because I love when I hear that somebody's life was saved because a bystander administered CPR. Not everybody has a medical background, but we can give everybody medical training. If you aren't CPR certified, please do it. It doesn't cost that much. And it's so life-saving. First aid. A lot of times it's CPR first aid. But you need to know basics because things do happen. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah and on Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. And big thanks to Daniel, our producer. Okay, so Dr. Fauci has admitted that the pandemic school closures went too long, that it probably wasn't a good idea. He told CBS in an interview, shutting down everything immediately, and we didn't shut it down completely, but essentially major social distancing and even schools was the right thing. But he said how long you kept it was the problem, because there was a disparity throughout the country. If you go back and look at the YouTube, I kept on saying close the bars, open the schools. Open the schools as quickly and safely as you possibly can. But initially to close it down was correct. Keeping it for a year was, again in quotes, not a good idea. Well, school closures were instituted upon recommendations by Fauci and other public health authorities. Some school closures went over a year. Now, let's kind of review. Now, Florida, other states opened back up pretty quickly, but, there were some school districts where the kids still aren't, some schools never opened back up to 5 days, only 4 days. And in fact, there's still schools providing online content for people who don't want to come to class. So what happened? If you guys remember what happened, and we need to, I know people say, Dr. Daliah, why are people still on Fauci's butt? Let it go already. No, because we need to learn. And I don't want to spank anybody, but nobody listened to me. Nobody listened to doctors saying, guys, come on, something's wrong here. Nobody was listening to the parents. And we want to make sure somebody listens. It's interesting. I don't like to tell my husband or my kids, I told you so. I hate that. I told you so. But why do some of us do that? It's because we want to rectify what could happen next time. We want to establish, hey, if I tell you something, I'm not wrong all the time, right? I'm sometimes right. I'm telling you I told you so because you ignored what I said. Now, people won't interpret that. They'll be like, oh, I told you so. Okay, she's going to be whatever. And they're not going to pay attention next time around anyway. But we do that because we're like, look, if I say something, please, for the love of God, listen to me. Well, I don't think the government's going to listen next time either. I think they're going to do whatever they want to do. But yeah, we told you so. But the main reason why we need to rectify this is we were ignored. And if we could, on record, have the people who ignored us admit that a public health policy was wrong, maybe with the next crisis, they will hopefully look up and see that evidence that maybe it's not a good idea. Now, what happened with the lockdowns in my neck of the woods, I can't speak for every state, is before there was any official lockdown, the schools closed. This was going on. I remember talking to my employees because we had a couple hair salons at the time. Still do, but I remember hearing on the news that schools were going to shut down temporarily because we didn't know what was happening in terms of COVID. I was hearing from hospitals that they were starting to get overwhelmed. So I went to my staff and said, hey, look, if your kids aren't going to be in school, do you guys need to be home with them? And half of them said yes. The other half said, no, we're good. I got babysitting. I'm like, but look, if you feel like you need to be with your kids, we could shut down temporarily if we need to. Then about a day or two later, our governor said we're going to shut down. Or maybe it was a little bit longer. So many private businesses were already going to shut down because the parents had to be home with their kids because their kids weren't in school. They can't come to work. So we were already preparing to temporarily, until the schools open up or whatever, We don't know what's going on. People are sick. If you feel like you want to be away from the public since you don't know what's coming your way, that's fine. We could temporarily close. Now, the lockdowns actually helped companies get financial reprieve, but this wasn't a temporary closure. What was it? Originally, it was supposed to be 14 days to flatten the curve. That 14 days turned into 140, turned into 1,400 days for some. So then some school districts were like, okay, I think we could reopen. Teachers weren't ready. Well, now we're moving into the summer because this all started roughly in March. So many parents, teachers talking about it, and it was like, you know what? Even though, and I'm from Southern Nevada, so I think we reopened some businesses May 9th because we were already nearing the end of the season and the end of the school year. Parents and teachers and all that were like, okay, you know what? We're already coming to the end of the season. We're going to start fresh in August. Well, then August came around. Even though we still had COVID wave, I think it was, remember, called the UK wave. So there was the British UK wave, even though they changed the name later. So we had another wave that came. I think it was Alpha. August, September comes, some teachers are like, no, we can't do it yet. Now, some parents are like, take my kid, please. But many of the teachers' unions were like, no. So some schools did hybrid. Some schools stay closed. Other schools, they were open. They're like, we're done with this. Let's get the kids back. And so our direction from the government was not very clear. The numbers were not very clear. You need to wear a mask. Masks still need to be done. The kids need to wear a mask at school. If they are going to go back to school, if they're sick, they need to be taken out. Well, September, October, that's cough cold. That's the start of cough cold season. So then the schools started to deal with the fall colds. They didn't know if it was COVID. They didn't know what it was. And so kids were out. There was a lot of confusion. So it was easier for the school districts to just stay closed. If we had more guidance, then maybe this wouldn't have been such a cluster. Well, now you had kids out of school for almost a whole year. What does that do to a child? Well, it changes their ability to learn. Kids are not supposed to learn on a two-dimensional screen. And we knew there was going to be learning loss. We knew there was going to be depression. We knew there was going to be poor sleep. And we have seen study after study, generational declines in reading, math scores, learning, mental health. Then when we were kind of at our last straw, there was this big video that circulated where teachers were dancing. I don't know if they were in New York, but they were dancing in their homes to try to show people that we need to be locked down. That was a big thing during COVID. Videos and TikToks of people dancing. I didn't think it was really the best move for nurses to have these coordinated dances. You would see an empty hall, an empty ward, and nurses in the hall doing a really kind of fun coordinated dance. It might have been good dancing, but we were under the impression that we are still locked down and kids can't go back to school because the hospitals are overwhelmed. So seeing videos, and I understand they probably did that in a ward where there would be no patients, so they wouldn't violate HIPAA and they wouldn't be in the way. But when you see an empty hospital ward and you see nurses free enough to be able to dance on the job, you start to go, okay, what the hell is going on? So dancing took this big role in the COVID pandemic, and I'm not sure why we had to see that, but we did. People were just dancing. So, Dr. Fauci is, under the eye of mortar for this 6 feet social distancing where there really wasn't scientific evidence to back that up. All the cost small business had to do to put stickers and plexiglass and ruin our environment with aerosol sprays and all sorts of other stuff and having people idle in their cars in the heat of the summer because they couldn't walk in. There wasn't scientific basis for that, and that's what was recommended. And mind you, I'm a physician. You have a deadly pandemic. Ebola comes our way. Yeah, I'm going to want us to stay away from each other. But you got to use scientific evidence, and you got to be open to theories. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Is it safe to fly? I get that question a lot. That's been asked ever since the Alaskan Airlines door panel blew off mid-flight. Is it safe to fly? Well, I just flew a lot of legs with my son to go overseas. My husband just flew on a plane. I'm supposed to be getting on a plane soon. I still feel safe enough to fly. When you look at the numbers and the statistics, they say the most dangerous part of flying is the drive to the airport. So I still feel safe. But these headlines start to rattle my faith. A new whistleblower alleges that faulty airplane parts might still be in use on Boeing jets. This new complaint is from a Boeing employee, Sam Mohawk, who claims that when Boeing restarted production of the 737 MAX after 2 deadly crashes in 2018-2019, there was a 300% increase in reports about parts that did not meet manufacturer standards. This is being reported by CBS News. While those parts were supposed to be removed from production and closely tracked, the report from the whistleblower alleges that the 737 program was losing hundreds of non-conforming parts, and he feared that non-conforming parts were being installed on the 737s. That could lead to a catastrophic event. Now, Boeing's CEO, David Calhoun, I think is leaving, and he is set to testify, I think, next week before the Senate on Capitol Hill. And the document also claims that when Boeing learned of a pending FAA inspection last June, many parts were moved to another location to intentionally hide improperly stored parts from the FAA. Whoa. Boeing said, "We received this document late Monday evening and are reviewing the claims. We continuously encourage employees to report all concerns as our priority is to ensure the safety of our airplanes and the flying public." Now, in April, Boeing whistleblowers, including Sam Selapore, an engineer at the company, testified to lawmakers over safety concerns. And he said, despite what Boeing officials state publicly, there is no safety culture at Boeing. And employees like me who speak up about defects with its production activities and lack of quality control are ignored, marginalized, threatened, sidelined, and worse. Now, Boeing denied his allegations, and Boeing said a 787 can safely operate for at least 30 years. before needing expanded airframe maintenance routines. 30 years. They say extensive and rigorous testing of the fuselage and heavy maintenance checks of nearly 700 in-service airplanes to date have found zero evidence of airframe fatigue. So, it's interesting because I worked for a place where when something was an issue and I had to speak, I don't want to actually say who came to me, and I had brought the customers' concerns. Oh, yeah. I can't tell you how much walls I hit. And somebody even said, if you weren't here, people would have complained to you. And then I was like, but then who would they complain to? They need somebody. They have to have a voice. They have to, things are wrong. And so, yes, I have seen companies with their statements, we have a suggestion box. It goes nowhere. It falls on deaf ears. But we're talking about people. We're talking about people's lives. Look at what happened with that Titan sub that killed 4 people, including a kid, when they were, looking at Titanic wreckage. There was a whistleblower who said he got fired recently before the act when he said, I don't think this is safe. I don't think it's ready. Now, it's always hard to, that's why keep your emails, and try to keep all documentation. Because I understand there's a lot of people that said, I told them so, I should get credit, that's why I lost my job, and they actually lost their job for another reason. But when there's email evidence, that's why if you ever think you're going to lose your job, you want to make sure, as long as it's not violating any classified sort of classified laws and clearance laws, make sure you have copies to protect yourself, to say, look, this is what I told him. This is what I said. So they can't blame me. Yeah, and it's, and unfortunately, I think especially since COVID, we've seen a lot of half-assed work. Is it because many people are on marijuana? And is it because people don't fear losing their jobs? Because there's always a shortage of staff. So if they do mess up, prior to this, years ago, you were so afraid to lose your job that you would do your job well. And you would make sure you did it well. Now I've seen people go, I don't care. But what are you going to do about it? And I'm not saying that happened with Boeing, but you wonder, how could somebody who works on planes not have the work ethic? How could a company not allow there to be, don't you want your customers safe? And that's one thing I've learned, and I've worked for a lot of different companies. I've noticed, I'm like, guys, the logic is here. Don't you want the positive outcome? Because the negative outcome is going to be deleterious. It's going to be horrible. Don't you want to do the right thing? And I'm blown away at how these companies are like, no. And it's because, it opens up a can of worms. And look, people's lives are at stake, for crying out flipping loud. So, I am hoping that, seeing planes land, my good friends have just flown recently. Thank God they made it to where they needed to go. Luckily, many planes are still landing minute after minute as we speak, second after second, doing okay. But we really need, and this is the Department of Transportation, this is Pete Buttigieg, we need some major inspections now. And we need all hands on deck, because I worry there could be another disaster. Another headline, apparently that has come out, is several black passengers were removed from a flight on an American Airlines flight. Now, the CEO said it was unacceptable. The CEO said that I believe the people involved have been put on leave. But apparently what happened, according to 3 black passengers, they sued the airline last month. They charged that they were removed from the flight because of racial discrimination. They said they were told by a white male flight attendant that there was a bad body odor. The men did not know each other. They were seated separately. But the 3 said they were among 8 passengers all black men who were told to leave the plane. The men had demanded an explanation. One of the men recorded the discussion, capturing an airline employee. And the airline employee even agreed that they were discriminated against. And they were, after a delay of about an hour, allowed back on the plane. Now, I don't know who the job titles were, who was put on leave. But, if there was an odor, let's say, that there should be a process, a protocol for that. Yeah, and I, being a flight attendant is not easy. I get that. But I think we have a system in place right now that is full of confusion. Nobody wants to do anything politically incorrect. Nobody wants to do anything discriminatory. But when there is an issue, I remember there was an issue with somebody who was on the plane farting a lot. And I don't think that ended up in a lawsuit. But, you have people with medical conditions on planes. And the problem is that the plane, you're crowded in coach. It's like you're cattle. I cannot sit in coach without somebody next to me touching me because the seats are so narrow. And maybe they need to come up with a better way where airlines could be a little bit more roomy. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So we say goodbye to some greats this week. Donald Sutherland has died at the age of 88. Many of us know him from a long career in the movies and TV spanning over 60 years. Hunger Games, MASH. He has died at the age of 88. We do not know the cause of death at this time, but he has passed. And, Kiefer Sutherland's father, who honestly, talent runs deep in that family, has passed at the age of 88. We also lost Willie Mays, and Willie Mays, I believe he was 93. and seeing the baseball great, and oh my gosh, watching his interviews, and I grew up. No, Willie Mays was amazing, and seeing that we lost him as well. Not an easy week, not an easy time, and so our hearts and prayers are with the families. We know it's not an easy time, and seeing two greats like this, and there's actually been multiple influencer and stars that possibly have died, but Willie Mays was one of the greatest baseball players of all time. Leaves us at the age of 93. That happened earlier this week. The 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So this is, we talked to you about that doctor, Dr. Eaton, who whistleblew Texas Hospital for doing sex change or providing gender-affirming care to minors when the law forbade it. Well, now we're being told that another whistleblower of the same hospital was threatened. Now, this is very dramatic and startling. But Vanessa Savage told journalist Chris Rufo, who was the journalist that also received information from the doctor, the surgeon, who was in residency at the time last year. But apparently the whistleblower, Vanessa Savage, claims that the FBI showed up at her doorstep and threatened her when she tried to report that the Texas Children's Hospital was violating state law by using the benefits to provide sex change operation to minors. She further alleged that doctors at the hospital were, quote, manipulating patients into accepting gender-affirming care, and she believed that some families feared doctors would call Child Protective Services if they dissented. She told the journalist what she saw, and she claimed 2 FBI agents showed up at her door, sharing doorbell camera footage with him showing 2 plainclothes agents knocking on the door and asking for her. This is pretty startling. She said as she approached the men, one of the agents began asking about her work. Now, Rufo shared this, I guess, on Twitter. And he says, I'm sure you're aware of some of the things that have been going on at your work lately. This is what he says in the video. When she replies, she is, the agent asked if he could come inside to let me do my song and dance. She said from there, the agents began to threaten her. She said, they threatened me. They promised they would make life difficult for me if I was trying to protect the leaker. They said I was not safe at work and claimed that somebody at my workplace had given my name to the FBI. She is now the second employee of that hospital to make claims. Dr. Ethan Heim is a surgeon who completed his residency at the hospital, leaked documents to the journalist showing that the staff had provided puberty blockers and other sex change treatments to children. Heim said he received a knock on his door from FBI agents who handed him a letter identifying him as a potential target in a federal probe. He said, I was given a target letter signed by a federal prosecutor that said I was being criminally investigated for a case regarding medical records. So he argues that such tactics were a blatant attempt at political intimidation. So this is concerning because, as I said, in medicine, all right, if there is something that another coworker or if you see something within a medical establishment that is wrong, that is against the law, is unethical, against code, against the rules, you are required to say something. If you don't say something, you're in trouble. If you know about it and you don't say something, you're in trouble. And so when you have somebody who does whistleblow, it now scares other people into doing what they're supposed to. And I get whistleblowing is very subjective, and I understand that, it can be very, not as cut and dry. But if there's a law saying gender-affirming care is not supposed to be used on minors, and you are a physician that either sees it is asked to take part in it, you have to report it. Where this gets tricky is, do you report it to the media or do you report it to the state board? You know, you're supposed to do your reporting. There's a chain of command, and there is now, if he said, I did go through all those channels, nobody would listen. So I went to the media. You know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in court. But if he bypassed the state board and because whenever there is a law, there's a district attorney or there's somebody you could go to for that if you think somebody's violating the law. And if he did, and you could keep evidence that you did your part by reporting. But, you know, to go to a journalist, that's where it gets tricky. And violating HIPAA laws can be federally. I think Dr. Heim is accused of violating medical HIPAA laws, which is supposed to protect patient privacy. He says the patient identifying data wasn't there, so he didn't violate HIPAA. So, you know, people who know the HIPAA law will have to, you know, comb through and see if there's anything about media or anything about not proper, you know, following protocol. But if he didn't violate HIPAA law, then the felony counts get thrown out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But having a whistleblower said that the FBI, she felt threatened by the FBI to, you know, what's going on here? And when you scare the medical community into not, you know, doing the right thing, where they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, you can't do that. We get in trouble. We're told all the time that if we see a HIPAA violation, we have to report it. If we see something wrong, if we see a patient who could be at risk, we have to report it. So then what do you do? You're going to get federal charges thrown at you? And it's very interesting. We're going to hear more and more. Some parents may say that they felt like the doctor was going to call Child Protective Services if they didn't agree to gender-affirming care. Wow. Okay, that's not supposed to happen. And unlikely happen in Texas. You know, but you know, I'm concerned. Well, look at how there were threats of kids not getting the COVID vaccine and people losing parental rights. Remember, there was a father who lost access, lost custody, because he wouldn't give the child the COVID vaccine. We have seen government, and I know this is alleged in this case with Texas Children's Hospital, but, you know, which is a well-known hospital and known to give amazing care to the community. But, you know, we are hearing more and more where the government used tactics that were, or people under the guise of following the government or public health, using tactics to threaten people into doing something. That's what we saw with the COVID mandate. So it'll be very interesting to see how this unfolds. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.